Hi, so I've got the herb packs out today, seeing as winter's returned. Heady high of about 11 degrees in the greenhouse today. That's pretty cold for this time of year. So in the packs this time I got chives, basil, coriander, parsley. I'm going to have a quick look at how to pot those up and get them going. Okay, so we've retreated inside because it's absolutely bitter out there. So I'm going to have a look at the 4 seeds. Got parsley, that's going to take the longest to germinate. That can take up to 2 weeks to germinate, so don't despair if nothing happens in the parsley pot for a while. Next slowest one is likely to be basil, I think, maybe a week for that. And then I expect the other 2, coriander and chives, you'll probably find will start to make their presence felt after about 5 days. I've put a wee picture of the seeds up here so you can see what they look like. Coriander is the most obvious one, quite big round yellowish balls. The basil and the chives are quite similar, both black. You'll find the basil slightly more cylindrical sort of shape than the chives, and the other one is parsley, which is a wee kind of not quite banana shape, but a wee bit of a curve in it and a slightly different colour. You can soak your parsley seed first, which will improve the time it takes to germinate probably. Soak it maybe just for 4 or 5 hours or something before sowing it. That can help, but it's fine to sow it direct just as it is as well. Okay, so we split the seeds into 2 packs just because the chives and the basil are quite similar, difficult to distinguish. So I wrote on them chives, parsley, coriander, basil. So tip these out carefully because they are quite fine. Same principles as previous video on sowing seeds. Plant them as deep as they are wide. So most of these are quite fine, so they really don't need to go too deep in the ground. So literally just press them into the surface of the soil. You know, space them out a bit. That'll help them get a bit more resource for themselves. What's the other one here? So we've got these little basil ones. Again, they're just little sort of, not spherical, oblong, cylindrical sort of shapes. So imagine shop bought basil. You know, you typically see quite a lot of stems in it, so they do pack quite a few seeds into those pots. It's a Mediterranean sort of weather-loving plant, so really not very well suited to growing outdoors in Scotland, but it is very well suited to growing in pots and containers and on a nice sunny window ledge where it will be happiest probably in Scotland. You can grow it in the greenhouse. I mean, if you have a really sheltered garden, you can get away with it in a spectacular Scottish summer outdoors, but it hates low temperatures, it hates cold nights, so yeah, Scotland not brilliant for that typically. Coriander, again, you can put quite a few seeds in a pot. It doesn't particularly like being transplanted. It's better to sow it in situ, as they say, or where you want it to grow. So it's probably worth just keeping it in the pot once you've sown it and just taking whatever you can from it as it grows. So the parsley, which are these little tan sort of coloured, they have a slight bend in them, the seed. They're going to take potentially up to a couple of weeks to germinate, quite slow. I often almost think I've put a dud batch in when they start to finally germinate one by one, so don't be surprised if they take quite a while. And you can quite happily subdivide the parsley. You can keep them in the pot and grow them that way. You could empty the pot out once they've got big enough and split it into 4 or 5 pots if you want, or you can plant them outside once you've hardened them off. That would be absolutely fine as well. And that just leaves chives. Okay, chives, a member of the allium family. That's basically all the kind of onion, garlic type plants. So typically, if you imagine your spring onions that you get in the shop, they tend to arrive in a bunch and they're often grown that way. Multi-sown as a kind of bunch makes quite easy for cropping. So chives are kind of similar. If you imagine a chive plant that you see in everyone's gardens, they're all about to burst into flower at the moment. They're clump forming, so they're quite happy to be close together in that sense. If you just do one chive seed on its own, you'll end up with one green sort of chive plant. So you want a nice bunch of them growing out. And yeah, you can quite happily grow chives in containers and pots. They'll be quite happy. Equally happy planted in the ground outside, and they'll just get bigger and bigger every year, and you can chop off what you need. You can then just take a spade, chop it into 4, dig it out of the ground, split it, you've got 4 new plants. Or split them even more if you want. So I've basically just pressed these seeds into the surface of the soil. They're quite small seeds, so they really don't need to be very deep. You can, if you want, fluff a bit of compost from around the edges over them. Probably the coriander will benefit from that. Same principles as before. Give them a good water, keep the soil moist, check it every day. Don't want it soaking, but you do want it moist. If it looks dry, you can tell just by visually looking at it. I mean, these are watered already from the rain last night in the garden, and you can see the soil's nice black colour. If it's dry, it'll be brown. Okay, final thing, obviously label them. Basil, coriander, parsley, chives, and we'll check back in on these as the weeks pass.